てないため絶対サービスキープしろこっちかフォロースルーに祝って絶望へのプレリュードを聞けそしてハードスタートは手わかん
Hey everyone, it's CurlyHairedHero, and welcome back to Prince of the 2005 Crystal Drive, where every episode that goes by I try to say that quicker and quicker. Sooner or later it'll be so fast that you won't even know what the fuck I'm saying. So, we're in the semifinals of the King of Strokers tournament. I'm using a team of Ootoris here. This is a tournament where it's not the same as all the other ones, because it is actually using the survival singles format, where I take my team of 3 players and compete against my opponent's team of 3 players, and we just play singles matches until, you know, there's only one player left standing. In my case, it's always going to be Ootori, because I have 3 copies of him. But the reason I'm using that is just because these games just take so long, or not so much the games, but the entirety of the round, since I'm essentially playing 3 sets here. So I wanted to make sure that I pick someone that has a good serve special, as well as a good return of serve special, so that I can abuse that once I go into super mode, which I can use with our coach here, Sanada, who practically give us a full awakening gauge here. We're going to unfortunately get a service ace on us, which is fine. So we're going to respawn around back with our own return ace. Return ace? Return ace. Ooh, nice fault there. Let's see if we can break through this serve easily here down the line. Very good. I feel like my return of serve, I'm pretty sure I've mentioned this in previous episodes, my return of serve is actually pretty good. Ooh, I'm surprised he didn't use a special there. My return of serve in video games is pretty good. In tennis video games, be it, you know, Mario Tennis or Prince of Tennis, I'm pretty good at returning serves. I can get return of serves or just return ace. I can get those pretty regularly. But when it comes to real life, it's actually quite the opposite, which is very weird. I don't really know what the case is, but oh my god, imagine I didn't have the super gauge or the awakening gauge, and I'm just throwing out specials and I'm just constantly getting faults, because it's fucking 4 gauges to use that stuff. Like, that's just so bananas to me that you can save up 4 C gauges just to fucking whiff and get a fault. They could have at least made it so that you had like a 4 gauge one that always hits, but it's fucking 4 gauges, and then one that was like 2 gauges or something like that. So it's a little easier and cheaper for you to use, but you run the risk of, you know, faulting. Something like that would have been nice. But yeah, oh my god. In real life, I'm not really that good at returning serve. It's probably just down to experience. Maybe if I were to, I guess, play more or just play more games, exactly, I'd probably get a lot better at it, because usually what happens is, unfortunately, whenever I play tennis, it's usually just with some of my friends that don't really play tennis very often, or at least nowhere near as much as like I do, right? And that's not saying that I do play a lot, especially right now. I haven't played tennis in like a year, but whoopsie, didn't mean to do that. I at least play to the point where, you know, I play a lot more often, and I at least take classes and stuff like that. So at least, you know, I'm a little bit more, overall I'm a lot more experienced, right? It's just because just by sheer volume of how much I've played compared to them, because they only really play, you know, randomly for fun whenever I force them to play, more than likely, right? But the issue with that is that we usually don't play actual games. We just end up playing, just rallying for like a couple of hours until we get tired and go home, which, you know, is fine. But the problem with that is that doesn't really help me when it comes to actually playing games, because I'm not getting used to returning serves. I'm not getting used to serving myself. I'm not really used to, or at least myself, my friends tend to be douchebags about it and try and hit winners, but I'm not used to trying to go for winners, because usually I'm just trying to hit the ball back towards my opponent so that they can hit it back and we can just keep doing a nice rally. But that sort of, I think, hurt me a lot playing tennis, I guess, is that I never, for example, went out and tried to join some sort of tennis league or, you know, a club or something like that. Or at least just find players that are more around my skill level. And I'm not saying that like I'm the best, like this and that, and oh, I'm playing with all these peons or anything like that. I'm not saying any of that. I just think, or at least maybe, I think it'd be more effective if I played someone that was a little bit above my skill level. Is more accurately what I'm trying to say. Because I don't really think it'll benefit me too much to play people that are like, oh my god. Look at that. Just whiffing that shit. Now I got no gauge. I don't think it's really useful in tennis to play people that are around your level or below your level. At least early on. It just makes it really difficult for you really to learn anything. Which is kind of weird because I feel like it's the same thing when it comes to like fighting games. I've heard that a lot, that like you're not really gonna learn a lot from playing people that are lower level than you. And to an extent I agree with that, but I feel like there is some things to be earned and gained from playing people that are either lower level, the same level to you, or whatever the case may be. You just have to sort of, I wouldn't say so much play differently, but you have to absorb the knowledge you're getting from those bouts differently, right? But I don't know if that's exactly the same with tennis, because I don't, in fighting games, of course, there's like a physical barrier of skill where you have to actually physically perform moves and whatnot, but for the most part, it's not too massive, at least to the point where you can, like, even if it's just barely functioning, you can do like press a button to punch kind of thing. Whereas like in tennis, just to get a rally, it takes a little bit more than just, you know, pressing a button, right? So it's not exactly apples to oranges, more like apples to watermelons. But that's kind of why I think it's not exactly the same sort of comparison, where if you were to play someone in tennis that's a much lower skill level than you, you're not going to get too much out of it, personally. I still think you can, you know, focus on your own fundamentals, and then also in teaching or attempting to teach the other players, you can hone your fundamentals, as well as, even if it's so much as, you know, playing these bad players and figuring out what it is that they're doing wrong, you can use that to again hone your own fundamentals and whatnot. But in general, I think what I need at this point is just to learn, not so much learn, experience more like actual game stuff. Because even though I play more than my friends that I usually play with, and even though I go to like classes, most of those classes are just like 90% of the classes are just me running drills and hitting balls. So it makes it a little bit easier for me to like hit winners, because that's kind of more or less all you're doing for the most part in tennis classes. You're trying to hit, like, they put the ball really nicely. I thought that was the point. So I actually let go of the controller to like talk with my hands. Oof, that was a great serve. So usually it's just the coach or whoever just feeding you balls while he has I forget, he has a really long racket. Which is why he's able to like reach for these balls that I'm thinking most players aren't going to be able to reach for. That's just because he has like this crazy long wooden racket. He has this crazy range. But anyways, that's kind of what, you know, tennis practice, or not so much practice, but tennis classes are like. So it's not the same as playing an actual game. They do, usually what happens, at least for me, for all of the classes I've taken, is that they'll do all of the drills and whatnot, and they'll, you know, teach you whatever. And then towards the end of the class, they'll let you play some games, either doubles, or against a coach, or against the other players, whatever the case may be. They'll let you play some games. Sometimes they'll even do some variations on that, where it's like, what is it called? Like ping pong tennis, they'll do sometimes, where it's like you you have a team of 3 and you hit the ball. They have a couple of variations of that. I think the ping pong version is the one I'm trying to explain, but you have like team of 3. Once you hit the ball, you like swap out immediately with your other person, so the other person has to run in and hit the ball, and you constantly keep doing that and try to like win points that way. But even there, it's just the coach feeding you the ball, so it's not the same as like playing an actual game. And then, for example, there's also the other version where it's kind of like you play like 2 points. I don't know what this version would be called. I think the first version I described is ping pong, because you're constantly switching around. But then there's the other version where you just kind of play the point with the other person, and then once the point is done, then you either switch or not, or whatever the case may be. And then sometimes they'll do like King of the Hill, where you'll actually play games or something like that, or maybe even King of the Hill on like where the court is split up, so you only take like this part of the court, and then there's literally someone else right next to you on the court also playing their game, kind of thing. I've seen all that kind of variations, which is fine and all, but I think I wouldn't say like I'm past that. I'm not saying, you know, oh, I'm so good I don't need any of that. That's definitely not what I'm trying to say. I think I need that, more of that, especially now that I haven't played in such a long time, because there's still a lot of fundamentals that I need to iron out. But more than that, I need to also play actual games. Get some experience playing actual games. Because it's kind of like the equivalent to, I keep talking like fighting games because that's the only other competitive thing that I can really relate it to. But it's the equivalent of just me going into training mode and just labbing combos. Just constantly trying to figure out how to nail these kind of combos and all that kind of stuff, but never actually playing any actual games against people. That's essentially the equivalent of what I've been doing, it feels like. Whoa, what is going on? Huh? Is that just his, I think that's his coach ability that just doesn't let me use my special. Wow, that's interesting. I thought the game glitched where I managed to use it at the same time as him or something like that. But I guess he just blocks me out. There we go. This time I managed to go through it. So that's interesting. I didn't know you could do that. I don't know if it's as soon as I'm about to use my special, or if it's the kind of thing like you use it and then for that one point, you can block off your opponent's specials. But in any case. So that's kind of the point I was trying to get at, is that rallying is nice, especially in the beginning. Rallying was all I really wanted to do, because I just wanted to try and like find a partner that I can consistently hit back and forth with. And I did find that. He was actually the captain of my school's tennis team, because I played tennis in high school, but we were like complete garbage, because it's like straight out of an anime, because first of all there was only 7 of us. I think we had just enough to play. We just barely had enough players to actually play the game, right? And then we had, later on we got like the 1 sub, but I don't think he maybe played like 1 or 2 games, unfortunately, because he came really late into the season. But it was just literally just all of us. So it was kind of like in Ice Shield 21 where they don't have an offense and a defense team, they just have the team. That's literally how our life was, right? But on top of that, the tennis team itself was like disbanded 2 years prior. I don't remember why exactly, but they just never had a tennis team in my school until my last year there, which was disappointing. I wish it was like I was a freshman coming in. It would have been so awesome. It would have done the whole high school sports anime thing, but unfortunately I was a senior, so I didn't get to do any of that stuff. But anyways, yeah, and then it was just us. And then it was kind of funny because they had a girls tennis team. They were actually consistent. They had players, they were playing like all the other years while the men's tennis team didn't have anything. So they had this massive team where they had like, I would almost even say like first string, second string, because they had like 20 or 30 players or something like that. So they had a whole bench, whereas like we were just barely getting along. It was just so ironic, or not ironic. It was just like, seriously, I couldn't think of anything more anime than that. So maybe that's why I really enjoy tennis and Prince of Tennis so much, because it's just like I literally lived through it, right? But oh my fucking god. Oh, it's like real life where I can't even serve. But we had a friend of mine, he was a good friend of mine from high school, which is kind of cool because I actually he was always like just better than me apparently, because he was in he was better than me in tennis because he was the captain of the tennis team. Even though we all joined at the same exact time, none of us had any experience playing tennis. I was probably the only one that had a little bit of experience in tennis because I quote unquote played it when I was like 8th grade. I held a tennis racket and I tried to play it, but all I did was try and hit it, and I immediately launched the ball out. But that was literally it, right? So none of us really had any experience actually playing tennis, and we were just trying to learn it as we go, right? But he managed to be the best out of all of us, and between me and him, we were like the most dedicated to playing, and we were constantly trying to, play. We would play like literally all the time. Like as soon school would get out at like, what was my schedule like? I think I got out at like 3 senior year. No, that doesn't make any sense. I got out way earlier than that. Yeah, no, I'm thinking like sophomore year or something like that. And we had like a couple of like, I think freshmen or sophomores or something like that. They got out at 3. But no, I got out of school at like 12 or like 1 o'clock or something like that. And I would like immediately go home, change. Sometimes not even. Sometimes I would go to school in my tennis gear, which is just, a sweatshirt, not a sweatshirt, t-shirt and pants, like sweats. I keep saying sweats because it was in the summer, so it didn't make sense for me to say sweats. But a t-shirt and shorts, right? And I would immediately just walk 3 miles to our tennis court and just play. I would usually get there like 1 o'clock or something like that. I was trying to get there as soon as possible. Sometimes I'd be delayed if I try to get something to eat, or if I have to go home to get something, or if I have to wait for my other friends. It's just like, come on, I just want to play tennis. But no, they want to go and wait for the other friends or get some food at the deli or some shit. And I'm just like, I don't care. I want to play tennis. Right? And I would just play for like from 1 to like 7 o'clock when they shut the courts down. Basically is what I would do majority of the time. Like I can't even, the amount of times that I did that, the amount of tennis that I played is just astounding, right? I played like crazy. It's like literally like 6-7 hours every day. I would just go and play tennis. And that was my life. I loved it. It just makes me so sad that this was, again, my senior year. Like, I really wish I was 3 years younger at that point, and I could have been like the freshman, and maybe I got good, and then like whatever, we suck first year, all the seniors leave, and then afterwards we like play or whatever. But none of that really happened. But in any case, me and him would always play tennis together. Always. We would always be the ones there. It would pretty much just be me and him always playing. So he's basically my hitting partner. We would play games, we would rally, we would discuss how to become better, all this kind of stuff. He would teach me stuff. I couldn't really teach him anything because he was a lot better than me. So I was basically just there to hit. Unfortunately, it was kind of the same situation I was describing where he was probably not getting anything out of playing me. Other than just being able to have someone to play with. But I was only able to improve just because I was playing against him and he was so much better than me. Because there were times that I just could not even like barely hit the ball back to him, but then afterwards I was able to like somewhat rally with him. But that's basically what I'm trying to say, is that the only reason I was able to actually be better is because I was able to play against someone that was better, and it wasn't even actually playing. But the little bit of like, I guess, match experience and all that stuff is just from playing him. Because I would play him, we would basically rally a bunch, and then we would always play either a game or like a full set or something like that before we would go home. And it was the best. And, well, it was like one of the best parts of my high school years. It's just really unfortunate that, again, it happened all the way at the end of it. So my senior year was just packed because it was the first time like I got a girlfriend, like an actual girlfriend. It was senior year, so it was like all the senioritis, and I'm like, oh man, we're gonna move on to college and all this other stuff. There's prom and like all this other stuff, right? Then on top of that, I had to go and experience tennis and love tennis. Like senior year was just fucking something, which is saying a lot because like it's not like I went to one of these nice schools or anything. Like, no, man, I went to a public school. I went to a public school in Queens. So it's not like I had any of that fancy learning or fancy equipment or anything like that. Nope. just made the most of what I got. Yeah. Oh man, it just makes me so sad. But that's probably just why I really enjoy playing tennis, even to this day. It's just because of that 1 year that I had a really amazing time playing it. Unfortunately, we're playing against Shishido here, who, if you've seen any of my older videos, is a real pain in the ass. Just because he has that one special where he can just run to the ball and hit it. And he has the other special where he just needs the one gauge, and he can just run to the ball automatically and hit it with a normal shot. But now when he's in super mode, he can basically just spam that like crazy. And Shishido's stats are pretty fucking solid. So let's go ahead, now that he ran out of his own awakening mode, let's go ahead and hit our jackknife here. Get this over with. And go into our own awaken mode here. So that we can continue to plow through this with some jackknives. And hopefully do some serves. I think it's like 2-1, yeah. So I should be able to. Uh-oh. Is he gonna do the thing where he's not gonna let me? Yep. So that's how it works, huh? So he uses it, and then I can't use my special, goddammit, for that point. And that really sucks, because that really wastes my awakening mode. That makes perfect sense, considering the way Inui is, like, you know, his tennis methodology and all that stuff. How he is in the series, it makes perfect sense that that's how his ability works. Doesn't make it any less annoying, but nonetheless. Yeah, I feel, I wish what I would have done is, because I had like aspirations of like actually playing it, but I didn't know really what other way that I could play tennis. I thought that the only way that I can play tennis was to just play and then go and either as in a school, you know, like I was used to doing as part of a school team, or I had to do it as part of just competing in like the US Open or something. It's a major tournament. I thought there was no in between, which is really stupid of me. But I wish I really watched Baby Steps sometime at the end, or maybe even during high school. Like I wish I started, like I wish, again, I was 3 years younger. I started watching personal tennis, played tennis, and then somewhere after that, like my sophomore year, I started playing watching Baby Steps, so you can get a more realistic sense of how tennis outside of school works. And that way I would have been a way better tennis player, would have played way more games, would have had way more anime encounters, and I would have also been able to then afterwards, after I finished high school, join like a tennis club or something like that, and actually play regularly against people, you know, actually compete in tournaments. Doesn't have to be the fucking US Open, doesn't have to be a Grand Slam, just some kind of tournaments, get some nice experience against other players. But at this point I can still kind of do that. It's in a weird, I'm in a weird spot where, putting aside the fact of everything that's going on with the pandemic and whatnot, it's kind of difficult for normal human interaction to happen. Putting that aside, right, is also the fact that I'm kind of old at this point. I'm going to turn, what, 30 at the end of this year? So that doesn't help. And I talked about it sometime in season 4, I think it was, where I'm recovering from this sort of illness that I have. I have like a chronic illness, which I'm dealing with. But because of that, I took some medication which made me, in my words, ill, but it was just because I gained a lot of weight and I was just really out of shape. My whole body was out of whack. Basically what I need to be doing right now if I want to play is just go through like this rigid training program just to get myself back into shape. Even though, you know, I am 30, but I still got at least, I would say, 10 years left. Even though there are people that play when they're like way older, right? I think I still have at least 10 years of usable good tennis. So I need to make use of that time, and so I just go through some sort of rigorous training programs to get myself into good shape, considering everything I went through. But since I'm still dealing with that chronic illness, it makes things kind of difficult. But in any case, took down Shishido somewhat easily. He actually used 10 special shots to our 14, so he did it actually pretty good. He had 100% serves. Of course, ours is 92, which is kind of high compared to what we usually get, but we managed to get 10 service aces to his 1, 7 smash aces to his 2, and 7 return aces to his 0. So we played a really, really solid game against Shishido. But in any case, take care of yourself.